At the family reunion, my father asked with genuine confusion, "Aziza, baby, why did you come in an Uber? Did the car I gave you for your birthday break down?" Before I could answer, my husband said with a smirk, "That car belongs to my mother now. She needed it more." My father fell silent for a moment, and what he did next filled me with profound pride. Before we begin, friends watching this story, please leave a comment telling us which city you are watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can grow and bring you even more interesting stories. That afternoon, the main house of the King family was wrapped in a warm but imposing atmosphere. The grand mansion, a marvel of modern architecture, buzzed with the aroma of delicious soul food emanating from the central hall and the laughter of relatives. It was the monthly family reunion, an event the relatives always looked forward to with longing. In the spacious gravel driveway, a fleet of foreign luxury cars was parked in perfect order. From the latest European sedans to massive SUVs costing hundreds of thousands of dollars, they all gleamed, reflecting the rays of sunlight filtering through the dark clouds that had suddenly covered the clear sky. Inside, uncles, aunts, and cousins enjoyed a buffet served by the city's finest catering company. However, amidst all that opulence, a chair at the head table, right next to Romello, was empty. Romello, seated comfortably in his carved teak chair, showed no sign of waiting for his wife, who had not yet arrived. On the contrary, he was completely absorbed in enjoying a Wagyu steak on his plate. Occasionally, he would let out a loud laugh at a joke from his cousin. Dressed in a branded silk shirt and a flashy gold watch, he tried hard to fit in with his wife's family, a family of tycoons in their own right. Romello always felt he had to prove he deserved to be there, even though everyone in that room knew his management position at the company was a gift from his father-in-law, President Thaddeus King. His attitude, overly confident and somewhat arrogant, often made some relatives uncomfortable, but they kept silent out of respect for Mr. King, known for his patience and wisdom. Outside the high walls of the estate, a dark blue Uber pulled up slowly. A light drizzle was beginning to fall, dampening the hot asphalt. The car door opened, and out stepped Aziza. She looked beautiful, but seemed a bit overwhelmed. The driver's card reader wasn't working, so she had to rummage through her purse to pay for the ride in cash. Then she rushed out, covering her head with her purse to keep her pastel-toned dress from getting soaked. There was no personal chauffeur to open the door for her, nor an umbrella to welcome her. Aziza ran across the wide courtyard toward the main entrance, passing her family's luxurious cars. When she reached the imposing front door, she was slightly breathless. She fixed her clothes, brushed the raindrops from her shoulders, and after a deep breath to calm herself, entered the lion's den full of inquisitive stares. A brief silence fell over the central hall when Aziza entered. Before the murmur of conversations resumed, though notably quieter, all eyes were on her. Aziza's appearance was simple but elegant, in stark contrast to the luxury surrounding her. Her face showed fatigue. Dark circles betrayed her exhaustion, although she tried to hide it with a faint smile. She approached her father, President King, who presided over the table as the family patriarch. Mr. King observed his daughter with a sharp gaze, but one full of love. He noticed that her shoes were slightly stained by the rain and that the hem of her dress was damp. His paternal instinct immediately detected the trouble his daughter had been trying to hide. Mr. King slowly set down his spoon, and the delicate sound it made seemed to resonate with special force in the ears of everyone present. He looked at Aziza, who had just kissed his hand respectfully, and then shifted his gaze to Romello, who continued chewing his food with delight, without having bothered to stand up or pull out the chair for his wife. Mr. King cleared his throat softly, and that was enough for the conversation at the table to cease completely. With his baritone voice, calm but commanding, he asked a question, a simple question that would change his son-in-law's destiny forever. He asked why Aziza had arrived late and why she looked soaked, as if she had come by public transit, especially when he had just given her a very special birthday gift for her comfort. Mr. King asked with feigned curiosity about the whereabouts of the brand-new Mercedes-Benz S-Class he had sent her the previous week. Had it perhaps broken down, forcing Aziza to take a ride-share in the bad weather? Aziza remained silent. Her lips trembled slightly. She still hadn't found the right phrase to cover up her husband's behavior, as she didn't want to embarrass him in front of the whole family. Aziza was an obedient wife. She always tried to protect her husband's reputation, even though her heart often broke. However, before a single word could leave Aziza's mouth, Romello interrupted the conversation. With his mouth half full, with a very relaxed attitude and no trace of guilt, Romello answered his father-in-law's question. He said loudly that the Mercedes-Benz S-Class was now in the hands of his mother, Ms. Corinne. Romello explained, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world, that his mother needed a large, luxurious car so as not to be looked down upon by her friends at the Church Society Club. He added an argument that made the blood of those listening boil, that Aziza, who only went to the office and dressed simply, should live modestly, and that using an Uber was more practical and convenient since she didn't have to look for parking. The room went even quieter than before. Uncles and aunts looked at each other in disbelief. They knew the car was a personal gift from Mr. King to his only daughter Aziza, not for his son-in-law's mother, who was famous for her vanity. Romello's words were not only disrespectful, but they showed a total disregard for his wife and a lack of awareness of his place before the person who had given the gift. Aziza lowered her head, holding back extreme shame. She wasn't ashamed of having come in a taxi, but that her husband was exhibiting his stupidity with such pride in front of her own father. She clutched the hem of her dress, wishing the floor would open up and swallow her. Her heart ached to hear how her husband prioritized his mother's image over his wife's comfort. However, Mr. King's reaction was completely unexpected for Romello. Aziza's father didn't slam the table, didn't shout, didn't even flush with anger. Mr. King remained silent for a moment, observing his son-in-law as if he were examining a strange insect. Then a faint smile appeared on his lips, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He nodded slowly, as if he understood the twisted logic Romello had just exposed. With a neutral tone, Mr. King said that he now understood that Ms. Corinne was using the car and that he appreciated Romello's honesty. Romello, interpreting his father-in-law's reaction as a sign of approval, or at least the helplessness of an old man before the younger generation, smiled smugly. He felt victorious, as if he had managed to handle his wife's family assets without any resistance. Under the table covered with a silk tablecloth, Mr. King's hand moved slowly to take his smartphone out of his pocket. Without even looking at the screen, his fingers opened a family messaging app and typed a brief order for his company's security and operations team. Not many words were needed. A single sentence was enough to activate the asset recovery protocol. The message was sent instantly, unleashing a destructive storm upon Romello and his mother. Mr. King put his smartphone back, lifted his coffee cup, and took a sip with delight, as if he had just signed a very lucrative business contract. His eyes rested gently on Aziza, sending her a silent signal that everything would be okay, that her father had the situation under control. Romello, oblivious to everything, continued eating avidly, unaware that the sword of Damocles hung over his head, ready to cut his arrogance at the root. Meanwhile, in another part of the city, a contrasting scene was unfolding at a luxury shopping mall, the meeting point for the city's high society. Not even the cloudy sky could dampen Ms. Corinne's desire to show off her new toy. In the valet zone of the majestic main lobby, a gleaming black Mercedes-Benz S-Class was parked, deliberately a bit crooked so everyone would see it. Ms. Corinne stood next to the car with her chin held high. She was dressed from head to toe in colors that didn't match. In a clumsy attempt to flaunt luxury brand logos, an imitation crocodile skin purse hung from her arm, and her fingers were loaded with excessively shiny gold rings. Around her, 5 of her friends from the social club observed her with varied expressions, some with admiration, others with envy, and some who, knowing the modest origins of Corinne's family, snickered discreetly. But today, the stage belonged to Corinne. She raised her voice on purpose to recount that this car, big and magnificent, was a special gift from her dear son Romello. She bragged that Romello's business was booming, so much so that he was able to buy her this car worth nearly $150,000 in cash, no installments. She patted the hood of the car as if patting her son on the back, boasting about the comfortable heated and ventilated seats and the state-of-the-art audio system. She didn't mention Aziza's name at all, as if her daughter-in-law had contributed nothing to her son's success. Her friends showered her with feigned praise, which inflated Corinne's ego even more. They praised what a good son Romello was, and how lucky Corinne was to have a son so successful and respectful of his parents. Corinne absorbed all the flattery like a sponge, feeling on top of the world. She even allowed herself to throw a hint at one of her friends, who had arrived in an older sedan, suggesting it was time to change cars for safety and comfort. Satisfied after almost half an hour of exhibition, Corinne finally decided to end the gathering. She said goodbye as elegantly as possible, saying she had to go to her usual beauty salon for a facial. Corinne pressed the button on the handle to open the car door and slid into the cool interior that smelled of new leather. She sat in the driver's seat, straightening her back to appear taller, and waved once more to her friends, who were still on the lobby sidewalk observing her departure. With total confidence, Corinne pressed the start button. But that was where her nightmare began. Instead of the smooth purr of the engine, a long, sharp, deafening alarm sounded. The instrument panel that normally glowed with futuristic graphics turned completely red. All the warning lights flashed at the same time like the lights of a broken disco, creating an atmosphere of panic in the confined cabin. Before Corinne could understand what was happening, the automated voice of the car's computer system resonated loudly through the premium speakers she had bragged about so much. The voice was cold, monotone, and robotic, but the message was very clear. Alert! Unauthorized use of an asset detected. Security system activated. Engine permanently locked by administrator. The voice repeated over and over. Corinne panicked, pressed the start button repeatedly, stomped on the brake pedal, and even hit the steering wheel with her palms, but the car was completely dead, like an expensive piece of scrap metal. Her face began to pale, and a cold sweat ran down her forehead, ruining her thick makeup. The situation became even more humiliating when the car's security system started honking the horn at regular intervals like an anti-theft alarm. The loud sound resonating throughout the high-ceilinged mall lobby attracted everyone's attention. The mall security guards, passing visitors, Uber drivers, and of course Corinne's friends who hadn't left yet, looked toward the Mercedes. Corinne's friends who previously admired her now began to whisper and hold back laughter as they watched Corinne like a fish in a bowl, frantically hitting the glass from the inside. Corinne tried to open the door to escape the shame, but the central locking system, remotely controlled by Mr. King's IT team, had automatically locked her in. She was trapped in her own luxury car, turned into a free show for hundreds of pairs of eyes. At the headquarters of Mr. King's company, a young IT specialist watched his monitor with an impassive face. He had just executed a priority order from the company owner. On his screen, the status of the vehicle with that license plate read, "Locked. User unauthorized." The employee typed the next command. Unlock doors after a 3-minute interval for maximum psychological impact, and simultaneously send the current location signal to the asset recovery team already on standby in the area. In the distance, in the mall lobby, those 3 minutes felt like 3 years to Corinne. She saw her friends take out their phones, not to help, but to record the ridiculous incident. She screamed for help, but her voice was drowned out by the car's soundproof glass. She cried hysterically. Her eye makeup ran, turning into a black liquid streaking down her cheeks, destroying the image of the high society lady she had tried so hard to build. When the door locks finally released automatically with a loud click, Corinne didn't get out immediately. She was too exhausted and in shock. But she had no choice, because in the distance, a bright orange tow truck with a large corporate logo was already entering the lobby area, making its way through the crowd. The employees who stepped out of the truck were not typical disheveled operators, but two security agents, robustly built with determined faces, dressed in black tactical uniforms. They carried a folder with legal asset seizure documents